Apes on tape. Hello, and thank you for joining us for Apes on Tape Sound Excited podcast. This is episode number 9. Today we're taking a bit of a divergence from our typical podcasts with bands, labels, and festival organizers. We're joined by Ryan Benton. Ryan was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy when he was 3 years old and given a relatively short life expectancy. He is now 27 and has benefited greatly from stem cell research, and as this ties in, he has put together a compilation benefit album that will help fund stem cell research and therapy. Thank you for joining us today, Ryan. How are you?
Good, very good.
And are you in Wichita? Is that right? Wichita, Kansas?
Yep, I'm in Wichita, Kansas.
Nice. I've never been there personally.
It's a great city.
Nice. So I watched the documentary and have read your story a bit, but obviously you know that better than me. So maybe you could give us a quick intro on how your illness and the treatment and the Panama and Costa Rica story and the progress you made.
Well, basically, I started in about 06, 07, and I started doing every 3 months. I was going down to Costa Rica and getting stem cell therapy, and it ended up showing a lot of progress, and we kind of realized that this was a pretty big deal and that, this helped with my disease a lot, and wanted to get it going here in the States, because back then and currently it's still not available here in the United States. So that's kind of been the mission since, is helping other people here, and along with myself, to be able to do it here and do it legally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not going to pretend I'm any sort of stem cell expert, but it seems like it's certainly very promising. But it seems also that there's a number of political and ethical complexities. And from my limited perspective, it seems that America is one of the leading research countries in the world. But we sort of just closed the door on this, and said, hey, we're not going to touch this. Is that accurate, it seemed like?
Yeah, I think that the United States is very, there's a lot of sway in the pharmaceutical companies, and I think that from what we've seen, there's not going to be a lot of money made from a pharmaceutical standpoint off of something that is a natural therapy and that is very, there's not a lot of finance going into that would have to go into using stem cell therapy, because of, you use your own body's cells to cure yourself, basically. You can take them out of your own body, harvest them, and inject them back in, and, it's not a very complicated process. Yeah, and it wouldn't be very, feasible for the pharmaceutical companies to embrace it. And sadly, they kind of run things, it seems like, in America. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Not to seem pessimistic, but that's kind of what we see.
No, definitely.
On.
I mean, you would be a good example and good insight into that, too. And again, from my perspective, not saying I know much, but it seems like the hesitancy, the embryo issue is its own thing, but in your case and many others, we're talking about adult stem cells, so it's not a factor. But is it, just that I've seen that maybe the claims of some of the benefits are overstretched, or like you were saying, maybe it's just the pharmaceutical and political economy and lobbyist issues, but it does seem like we are missing out on what could be a huge opportunity. Why not at least research it? That seems...
Yeah. I think there definitely is research going on, and a lot of colleges do research, but, there's so many different levels from the research point up to the FDA trials, and the FDA is a huge thing to get through. And, the average from beginning of a study to the end is about 10 years through the FDA. So, it's still with that process, but, in everyone's case, you hope that it is expedited, because, a lot of patients can't wait 10 years, so...
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, I've had several family members affected from cancer, and I'm sure anyone listening has had a relative affected by some health issue that stem cell has been linked to or potential treatment for. And I was looking at some polls like Research America that basically said not even 15% said they strongly oppose, and less than 25% really opposed it anyway. So it seems like, on the whole, and the grant is just one study, but America as a population is in favor of looking into it.
Through doing the benefits and the benefits CD, I've been able to talk with a lot of different people about this and about my situation. And what I've come to realize is a lot of it is just lack of knowledge, and it's not any sort of moral standpoint why people don't want it. It's just a lot of people aren't informed about the benefits of it and the potential of adult stem cells, and that's where I think the first thing needs to start, is just educating people about it and about what it has the potential to do to healthcare, period, and it could change a lot of people's lives and stuff.
Absolutely. Well, on a bit, changing gears a bit, how did you decide you wanted to use music and ultimately a compilation album to fundraise? I saw in the video that you play music too, but what was the train of logic there?
Well, music, before even, stem cell therapy, first of all, was and is the only sort of treatment that I've ever had proposed, really, as with muscular dystrophy. And so, using something like that along with music that is something that I, kind of have basically the two most important things to me that have kind of changed my life has been music and stem cell therapy, and kind of combining the two just kind of made logical sense.
Yeah, definitely. And then when you decided that, did you pick a list of artists you want to reach out to, or did you find a label first? What was kind of the initiating step?
Well, the first one we did a couple of years ago, and it was just kind of local bands that I had known and friends that I knew that were musicians, and kind of all just kind of reached out to me to give a track to. It was like I told a lot of people that I was thinking about doing it. It was just kind of, hey, here's a track, and then and it did okay, like at a local level. But then I think it was like a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago, I was at an OC show, the band The OCs.
Yeah.
And I ended up talking with the lead guy, John Dwyer, forever, and he, kind of asked about my situation and stuff, and I explained my story, and then it got, do you do anything to give back or whatever? And then it kind of this CD got brought up, and I kind of just pushed the idea of, like, would you guys be interested in doing a track? And that kind of sparked just a, like, nationwide type, getting it to a larger scale. And so from there it was, getting a lot of larger national bands.
And you got a number of great artists on there, like the OCs, Cave Singers, Dr. Dog members. How did you get in touch with the other bands? Same process of meeting them at shows, or did the OCs kind of open the door?
Actually, a lot of it was just being ballsy, and a lot of people just saying, you've got a great story here, you've got a great cause, and you'd be surprised how many artists would like to be involved, that if you just give them the chance. But it was just kind of looking up contact info and just kind of doing that approach.
And was it mostly managers and a little bit removed, or were you talking directly with the bands themselves?
A lot of it, yeah, was just directly the band. A lot of the bands on it are kind of DIY bands that kind of do everything themselves. So
yeah, it makes it easier, less cogs in the machine.
Yeah, and just no middleman, which makes everything easier.
Yeah. So how did Airhouse Records come out? Because I know they only have 7 artists or something. How did that become the method of releasing it?
Yeah, that Airhouse is run by a friend of mine named David Lord.
Oh, cool.
And it's one of the only record labels in town right now that I really believe in, and is really pushing stuff and trying to make things happen. And he's just one of those guys that really kind of, something's going to get done when he's involved with it, and so, and he believes in it all, and so it just was kind of logical to go to him and ask, would you guys be interested in putting this out and helping me put it together, and he's been probably the most helpful throughout the whole process.
Yeah, I can see that. We'll check that out further. And we'll put a link onto Airhouse on the site too. So previous to this compilation, were you pretty familiar with other compilation benefit albums, say Dark Was the Night that the Desner brothers of the National put together?
Yeah, actually, I reached out to them asking their advice on it, and their manager gave me a little bit, but the National, the two brothers from the National actually were in the studio the whole time, and I wasn't able to talk with them, but I at least corresponded with their manager a little bit and got a little bit of advice, but that was kind of on a bigger goal was to hopefully someday make something like that was. I mean, that was a really cool benefit album they did, and they were able to get it to a huge audience.
Yeah, that was the widespread distribution on that was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was in the millions is what the manager told me.
That's nuts. For all the kind of negative stories around the music industry the last decade or so, and obviously there's been financial losses, but there's a lot of crazy positive stories like this, and we did an earlier podcast with a Seattle organization called Team Up for Nonprofits, who basically organize music events and help nonprofits out with that and funding. And it's interesting talking to them and you and seeing how well music and these sort of causes go together. I'm not sure if it's just the emotional nature of music or kind of musicians being passionate people in general, but it seems to go well together. I mean, did you experience that in this process for you, that it was just seamless?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, being a musician in general, I mean, you meet kind of some of the most just morally sound, like just genuine, authentic people, and you get enough of those kind of people together and get music involved, and good things are bound to happen,
Yeah, absolutely. So what else have you been listening to these days, artist-wise? Just a chippy.
I don't know. Like, I'm kind of one of those bouncing around on Spotify, like the related artists. I'm always kind of falling into different stuff, but I listened to the new MGMT that came out last week, and I'm super into that.
See, I hadn't had a chance to listen to that all the way through because I think the RDIO was streaming it originally, but it was just little clips. And I read a bunch of reviews, and it seemed like Spin and Stereo Gum and Pitchfork, they're all just panning it and saying it wasn't very good. But I need to listen to it to hear it, so that's cool to hear that you listened through. And
yeah, I love it. It's super, like, trancey, and it just sounds like two guys throwing on a drum sample and just playing keyboards over it, which I love to do myself. So
yeah, seeing the musician perspective for sure.
I relate to it, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you very much for joining us today. We'll make sure to link up to the benefit album on the site. And best of luck with everything, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.